Gal, is this just because teams are sitting back, playing deeper against you, playing low blocks, making it harder for you to break them down, on top of maybe your team being a little bit more sensible with the ball?
It's expectations. Expectations have changed. We're expected to beat teams like Brentford a lot easier now that we're challenging for the league. We beat them last year. So really and truly, I say expectations more than anything else. Last season, we didn't have as high expectations. So when we win these kind of games, people are not going to be like, oh, people were more or less shocked or somewhat surprised by us continuously getting results. Now it's expected when we have even a shaky performance like today, people don't look at the fact that we won the game and we end up getting the 1-0 victory. They're more or less going to look at the overall performance and going to say, oh, can Arsenal continue to get away with it? But the thing is, no two games are the same. This team, let's be honest, our attack is just finally getting healthy, right? This is not a convincing performance from our attack, but let's cut them a break. Mikel Arteta and these boys, the midfield we've been trying to figure it out for the longest time. So why do we give teams like Man City such a big leash? Because they have the history of showing they've done it. Until Arsenal gets over that line, people are going to criticize us harshly, Terry, and that's just the reality. I think as Arsenal fans, obviously we're going to be annoyed by the fact that we're not scoring more goals, but really and truly, if we're controlling more games, this might actually be more sustainable than us blowing teams out every game in the first 20 minutes. We're actually controlling the game more from minute 1 to the end.
Do you know what? I don't even think it's a lack of chances created. I just don't think we take our chances. Like in Nketiah, what an absolute idiotic thing to do, to try and shoot there when Saka could have been open goal.
100%.
You know, there's other opportunities, like for example, Jesus takes on his man and doesn't realize like the defender's on him and he's got no angles there. So for me, there is the chances, but when it's like the bare basics we're not doing. It's like when we should have passed, we're shooting. And when we should be shooting, we're passing. And it's like we're not really making the right decisions all the time. But that's going to happen, obviously. We're not expecting these humans to be 100% perfect. But there are some glaringly like greediness and selfishness to the team. And I also do think there's an element of actually thinking the opposite to a lot of people. There's too much freedom given. And why I say that is because when you look at Gabriel Jesus, rather than being in the center when the wingers are trying to do their job, he's actually with them. And it's like, why is our striker sat next to Saka when he needs to cross the ball? There's no one there. If you're going to play that way, then you've got to get Trossard to go center, go into the middle, get Martinelli into the middle. You've got to overload. The issue is Xhaka was doing it really well last season. Martinelli was doing it really well last season. This season, there seems to be a positional unawareness to what people need to do. Like if Martinelli's got the ball, Saka, you overload, you help. Tomiyasu, you overload the box. That overload that we used to have last season is no longer there. That's why they can't just cross the ball. They can't just whip a ball in or play better football. And that to me is why I've been criticizing Arteta a lot more. And he's not understanding the positioning. He seems to have one way of playing, and he doesn't really want to adapt.
Can I say one thing though? Do we not give these boys credit for having situations where the chips are down and they constantly keep finding solutions? Let's be honest. This team, even though we are not scoring as many goals as we were last season, even though we are getting goals from open play and penalties, we're putting ourselves in the right situation to get these goals. We're trying to build the right attitudes. We're not trying to, play depth. Obviously, there's times where we don't have our best games, like the Tottenham game and the Chelsea game. But overall, I'm seeing a level of consistency from our defensive performances that gives me more trust that we could build from this. Everyone keeps saying it's unsustainable to play this way. Guess what? You know what's unsustainable? When you're giving away too many chances defensively. Us not scoring the goals, we're getting the opportunities. We're just not finishing them.
I do think that there is I understand everybody wants utopia. So people want a team that is barely penetrated and a team that just rips everybody apart like a hot knife through butter. If you actually go through the history of just say English football, in case that's all you watch, and how many teams have consistently been like that, where they're impenetrable and they rip through people, and even like good Man United teams that won Premier Leagues weren't at that point. We could still be got at as an example. So it's been a handful of teams. Last season, and this is where I give Gary Neville a lot of credit. Last season, he said, I'm not backing Arsenal because they just concede too many opportunities. And he ended up being right. His mind has changed this year where he thinks you guys have got a much better chance because he doesn't see you conceding the level of opportunities that you did last year. And I also think, and I said it early on in this season, and I'm standing by this until it's proven wrong, But I also think there's an element of your team. I don't know how you would instruct this because I'm not a football coach. This is me as a fan looking. I think there's an element of don't go out there and I'm going to use an expression that's probably a bit rude, but don't go and blow your load too early. Don't go out there and work at 100% from match day one for 90 minutes every single game. And by the time we, as in this would be what your manager would say, by the time we get to, in case someone clips me up for being a gooner, by the time Arsenal get to April, they're all burnt out. So I do think there's an element. I remember last year, and everybody was talking about, City looked slow at the beginning of the season. City looked slow. And in the second half of the campaign, they came alive. And everybody said, I think the manager instructs them to do that. Why is that suddenly some warped idea that Arteta... I don't think Pep invented that notion. I'm sure that he isn't the first sports person that said start slow, like coach, and said start slow and get better. A lot of boxers do it. A lot of boxers get better the longer a fight goes on because maybe they don't have great knockout power, so they want to be able to like win on points. So I think there's lots of different strategies that you can have. Like, Sal, from your point of view, are you worried though that you could fall off the edge of a cliff, or do you think that things will get even better from this point?
To be honest, going into this season, I said that the only difference between us and City is that City have won it before. That's the only difference. As to what's happening right now, the only difference is City have got their history to back them up, that even though they're playing like this, they will always come back. January, that's it. They're on. They know what they got to do. They know what they know what their aim is. They're going in there for the win. So it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen for them. But for us, we're going through a similar thing where we went through the whole season last season, going crazy from the start, scoring goals, winning games, and obviously towards the latter end of the season, we started to fall off a little bit. Then we've come into this season. I originally thought we'd come in and it wouldn't be as it was last season. We wouldn't start that high, given that we got rid of Xhaka, never replaced Xhaka. We bought in Kai Havertz, who was supposed to be the Xhaka replacement. They bought him in to be the Xhaka replacement. They wanted to play him in midfield. It didn't work out. So now we've got an empty position in that left 8, which we need to fill, which is, to be honest, the reason why I think that's the most important position for us to fill at the moment. But yeah, just looking at it, I don't think at the moment with the chance creation, it's sustainable for us to win a title at the moment. But I'm hoping that when we go into the market in January, we can bring that left 8 or that midfielder that can add that creativity. Because even yet again today, Ødegaard was invisible. He did nothing today. So I need to find somebody that can unlock Ødegaard again, that can help take some of that creativity weight onto him as well, and be like, yeah, listen, I'm going to create something as well, push the ball forward, so we're just pressuring the team, pressuring the defense, because we need to create chances. If we go and get a striker now and we don't get a midfielder, then that striker is going to be up top and we're not going to be creating any chances for him, because the chances that we create has decreased so much from last season. It's actually crazy. Last season we were in probably the top 3, top 4 for creating chances.
So I just looked at the stat now. So last season you finished 6th in the Premier League for big chances created. Yeah. And you had 73, which averages 1.9 per game. This season you're averaging 1.5 per game. So it has dropped, and by the end of the season, that 0.3 will add up. But again, the drop isn't as, I just don't think it's as significant as maybe you will feel it is. And that's and do you know why I think that is? I think it's because you're emotional about your football club. I think it's because
we don't take them.
Terry, it's where the
maybe. Yeah.
We were a lot more clinical, in my opinion, last season. Every opportunity that we got, we didn't actually sit there and go, "Oh my God!" It's like now we're talking about Nketiah, like Jesus should have scored his header. Like we're talking about these big opportunities that were created being missed. Like Kai Havertz, for example, has missing plenty of opportunities as well. You know, Saka has missed a few opportunities. Martinelli has missed a few sitters where he should have made better decisions. That's the problem. I feel like we are doing the same, and this is why I keep saying we need a striker, because there's no outlet anymore. Like Jesus, as good as he's been and as good as he can be as a chance creator, there's no one there to just whip a ball into. And that's why I keep saying I don't think the 8 is the issue. I just don't think we've got anything that keeps these defenders, especially in a low block. If we can get someone like an Ivan Toney, a Vlahovic, or someone like a target man that can play on these defenders, especially the physical ones, it's going to bode as well. Saka, a lot of the time, looks up, no one's in the box, I have to pass back. Oh, what the hell are you doing there right next to me, Jesus? Do you want to hold my hand or something? You're meant to be in the box for me to whip it into you. So that's the problem.
I feel like, one second, I feel like we're being very pessimistic here. Guys, let's take a second. Relax. We are 13 games in. Am I mistaken? 13 games in. 13 games into the Premier League table. A season where we're saying we don't look as good as last season. We're top of the table ahead of Liverpool and City, who've also started the season off very well. If you guys are telling me that we've been playing bad and we are top of the table, imagine when we click into gear, we might run away with this league title.
Yeah, I mean,
Jorginho.
I think you're looking at it from like
the way Igal turned that around is crazy.
Yeah, it is. No, look, we're not saying we're bad, but we're critiquing the team in terms of we're much better defensively, and everybody's praised our defense for that, right? And we're praising the team for how we defend. But we can also sit there and be like, well, as good as our defense is, every team that's won a Premier League, right, has had a good balance to it. They defend well, they attack well, they've got a solid midfield. So for us to come on here and critique the attack and even the midfield is a fair criticism, because that can hold us back moving forward, right?
But we're not looking at both sides. That's my point. We're criticizing, but we're not looking at the potential of this team. Jesus has not played with Saka and Martinelli too
We're not
often.
criticizing, like saying we're shit.
No, I get that. I get that. I'm trying to bring some balance to what I feel like is not we're not being balanced here. The reality is we're looking at the negatives, but nobody's actually looking at the fact that this team has not been together for too much. We have not seen Odegaard with Jesus, Saka, and Martinelli too often this season. We've not seen our best team too often this season. There's going to be injuries, and we're going to have to weather those injuries. But the reality is the best is yet to come. We're making it seem like we've already seen the best of Arsenal, and there's only a decline going from here on out. That's not the reality. It's early in the season. And what's wrong with saying City can redevelop their whole team, Liverpool can redo their whole midfield and their attack, but Arsenal can't? Come on.
I hear on that. I want to go to some. I think we have some good points on that. I want to go to some of these super chats that have come in here.